How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Ask me anything about politics. You can ask me anything that you like. There's no such thing as a dumb question. It can be as simple or as complicated as you like. I do not believe in making people feel stupid or ashamed for not knowing things, so you don't got to worry about whether or not you should already know the thing that you are asking about. I am available to answer all of your questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question, so you don't got to worry about, if I ask this, everybody's going to think I should I don't know something that I really ought to know. You can ask me anything that you like. There's not going to be any judgments. There's not going to be any roasting. There's not going to be any debating. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know anything about it, or you only know a little bit about it. And, it can be really complicated. It can be like trying to learn a new language because people are talking about, various three-letter agencies, and they're throwing words around like reconciliation and, continuing resolution. And it's like we're all supposed to know what these words mean already. Sometimes we just refer to people by their last names, like Booker and McConnell and Kinzinger and stuff like that. And so, what's up, Noichi Gamer? It can be really intimidating and it can be really difficult to first start to learn about this stuff. And so I like to make myself available to answer everybody's questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated. Jatinifia Jayangira says, how is a filibuster effective? So there's a couple of ways in which a filibuster can be effective. So first of all, if a filibuster is stopping all other Senate business, it is hypothetically supposed to make all parties kind of reconsider. And if, people are kind of like voting and it's like a very heated thing where people are just kind of like letting the emotion of the moment get a hold of them, somebody can filibuster and, cause everybody to sort of like take a breath. That's number one. Number two is, it kind of puts the spotlight on an issue where if the American public is just going about their business and then they hear that someone like Cory Booker has been talking for the last 18 hours straight, then maybe they get a little curious and they want to check out the things that he's saying. The filibuster has been reformed over the past 15 years, where every single filibuster used to be what Cory Booker is currently doing, where people would have to get up on their feet and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then the filibuster changed. It changed to just an email. And so there were lots of senators who have filibustered things that we know nothing about, that we have never heard or seen of. And that is another one of the benefits of the filibuster, is that we would see people and we would see what they were doing and we would know what they were doing. Where if the Democrats had a bill that was like, let's make sure that no child dies of hunger in America, and some Republican senator was like, I'm going to filibuster that, because of the new email filibuster, we have no idea. We don't know about that. It's not as visible. I personally think that we should make every filibuster have to be the old school filibuster like Cory Booker is currently doing. But we would need Democrats to pass that because Republicans really don't give a shit about that sort of thing. Let's see here. Thank you for your question. Ex Warzone Princess says, do people in politics have a security clearance? Some people do have various levels of security clearance. So, the people who are the House majority and the House minority leader and the Senate majority leader and the Senate minority leader, they have more of a security clearance than, say, a freshman senator who is, just, brand new in the door. There are people in specific, committees national security committees and, things like that. They have a higher security clearance. Some people in the president's inner circle have a higher security clearance than, just random House members, stuff like that. Animals as Feeders says, why do people pretend the only civilized country in the Middle East is the bad one in Israel versus Palestine? It's really interesting the way that you phrase that. It's like you're trying not to say things to not get your comment blocked or something like that. What's up, Taco Cat? I think it's probably because of some, inherent racism or the fact that we're associated with them. The fact that Israel, the people there are more white presenting, and the religion Judaism is like, there's like a sliding scale for people who want to be like prejudiced against different groups of people, and Judaism is like closer to being white than say like Muslim is. Like, that's not my opinion. That's kind of like the way that the culture acts towards these various religions. You know, as a Jewish person, I know that there's like 5 minorities below me that are gonna get, you know, shipped off to gulags before I do. So, you know, they're like the canary in the coal mine. Again, this is not me. This is like, you know, the culture. This is what the vibe is, you know. You're asking why people think of Israel as being the good guy and the surrounding nations as being the bad guy. Let's see here. Joe says, if tariffs only cause price to fall into consumer, why are countries adding reactionary tariffs on the U.S.? For, you know, there's, so that there is not an unequal trade deficit happening between the two countries. If you are tariffing the things that are coming out of my country into your country, that is going to hurt my economy, and I can't let that just go, you know, unreciprocated. So I have to do that back to you. The reason why it's worse in, you know, Trump's case is because we are putting a lot of tariffs on every other country versus those countries just putting a tariff on us. So it is going to be substantially less damaging to those countries doing the retaliatory tariffs than it will, then, you know, the damage will be to us, the American consumer. Ranger said, how did Israel do bad in the conflict? Israel is guilty of doing war crimes against the people of Palestine. In addition, they have been, you know, guilty of apartheid against the people of Palestine. People have described Palestine as an open-air prison and the citizens there as second-class citizens. You know, Israel has been annexing territory in Palestine. You know, people have been kicking Palestinians out of their homes and moving in, and yeah, that's not the move, as they say. Let's see here. Avermicus Kind says, uninformed hosts. I'm pretty informed, I think. Emily says, Wisconsin, please vote Susan Crawford today. Yes, I will second that. Everybody, if you live in Wisconsin, if you live in Florida, you got a special election today. Please go out and vote. No, Dodo, good to see you again. How do you feel about all these law firm executive orders and the fact that many of them settled? Jake R says, Trump? No, Jarrett. So yeah, there's a collective action problem where all of these law firms should be like banding together and saying that we will not stand for you singling us out and trying to use the power of the government to punish us for doing our fucking jobs of being lawyers, you know? But there's a, you know, every man for themselves kind of vibe right now where people are worried about the things that Trump and Elon Musk are doing. They are worried about what the American public and the Republicans in Congress are just going to let Donald Trump get away with. They're worried about what side of the conflict the military is going to fall on, since the Trump administration has fired the heads of all the various branches of the military and then are going to replace them with loyalists who will do whatever they say. So, you know, if you know, some law firm is standing firm against the Trump administration and the Trump administration tells the military to, you know, to annex their building, you know, they could potentially do that. And so all these businesses are like, how fascist are we going to get here? Like, how authoritarian are we going to get? It's a different value proposition for them. If you have a lot of money and power and employees, then you have a lot more to lose, and you can do a little wiggling as far as like working with an authoritarian and fascist government. It doesn't really pay to take that moralistic of a stand if the American people are not taking to the streets and demanding better and voting for Democrats in the midterms and special elections and stuff like that. You know, where a lot of these people are concerned, it is fear of, you know, being sent to a fucking gulag in El Salvador. For some of it, it's just the profit motive. And it's just like, right, I think that we can do better in this competitive rat race, dog-eat-dog world. If we settle, and then maybe that law firm that is our rival, you know, the Trump administration will go after them, you know, and then we'll get all their business, you know, shit like that. Let's see here. Tie-dye guy says, why is it okay that we are getting rid of due process? It is not okay that we are getting rid of due process, tie guy. And I should hope that you and everybody watching this will fucking, you know, take to the streets and yell your fucking heads off about it, because it's fucking, it's immoral, it is scary, it's dangerous, it is lawless and unconstitutional. It's a fucking humanitarian nightmare. You know, it could happen to any of us. And yeah, I would hope that we will all lose our fucking minds about this, you know? Let's see here. Tie-dye guy says, I'm very worried about it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I 100% think that you should be. Carlos G says, will Trump get a third term? He won't legally get a third term, but there's a lot of different mechanisms by which he could try to, illegally stay into office. The fact that he wants to, the fact that he says that he's going to, is disqualifying, in my opinion. I don't know why more people aren't fucking pissed off about it, but, he's going to do a constitutional convention, or he's going to lobby the Supreme Court, or he's going to ask Congress for a waiver, or he's just going to declare martial law and refuse to leave office, or some shit like that, let's see here. Not the Sun says, you think he's going to declare martial law? I think it's a possibility. It's a distinct possibility. And I think if he wants to, he's just looking for an excuse, Northeaster says, it got everyone to stop talking about whiskey leaks. Is that what we're calling Signalgate now? I haven't started talking about fucking Signalgate, And if you've been watching this stream for a while, you will know what I said about this last week, which is that he is going to try to see if he can get away with this, away with not firing anybody. And the White House just put out an official word this week that said they consider the case closed. They consider the matter over. So, Jarrett's been, was right again. The score is fucking 1,000,000-0. But nobody gives a shit what I have to say, Fit Prof says, you know everything about politics? I know a lot. I wouldn't say everything. I don't think anybody knows everything. Diego Vargas, I can't answer that question or I'll get booted off of this platform. Noche Gamer says, did you see Trump show Who is Boss to Putin? What are your thoughts on that? I don't know what you're talking about, Noche Gamer. He put forward a peace proposal that was a bunch of giveaways to the Russian government. And Putin said, even that is not enough for me. And so I don't know where you're getting that he showed Putin who's boss when Putin just literally took the deal that Trump gave him, which was basically 90% of what Russia wants and almost nothing of what Ukraine wants. And Putin said, this is unacceptable to me. I need more. So I don't know where you are seeing that is Trump being the expert negotiator. Ed said they fired one tiny staffer as the fall guy. I didn't even hear about that. They fired a person. Law guy says, all you do is give your opinion, nothing more. That's not accurate. I give lots of facts. Trump said that if Putin doesn't agree to a peace deal in a month, he will put tariffs on countries. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, Noche Gamer. Braden said Trump would pass before a third term. Pieces of shit have a way of defying, the laws of, morality, of mortality sometimes. Tie-dye guy says, why are all Republicans allergic to trying to learn? Tie-dye guy, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. People that are regulars here on the stream will know that I am trying to instill in the people that are watching and in myself even a sort of radical empathy where we recognize that there but for the grace go I. If I was born into that family, in that town, in that state, going to that church, getting all my information off of, that social media feed, then I would potentially be falling for all of this shit as well. And part of the bullshit propaganda that people in red areas are, being drenched with is the idea that education is a liberal conspiracy and that higher education indoctrinates people into becoming more democratic. It is a ploy. It is something that the wealthy have been working on for a really long time. I am reading a book right now called Dark Money about the various billionaires in this country who have been trying to pull every lever of power they can to influence the culture and make it so that people vote for politicians that will enact their policies and have the kind of cultural zeitgeist that helps them going forward, I've said this before, it's a little bit more tinfoil hatty, but I think that there is probably a reason why we saw shows like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and Cribs that were kind of like aggrandizing and lionizing the wealthy as opposed to pointing out that they're fucking us all over, and somebody pointed out recently that they were like, anytime I think it was, what was it, like Chappell Roan or fucking Billie Eilish or something, whenever they see somebody in like a luxury car, they're just like, that's pathetic, like that should be embarrassing to drive a car like that when people are hungry, Let's see here. Che says, we need communism. I think we need more. There's no such thing as a state that is entirely communist or entirely capitalist or entirely socialist. It's all varying degrees. I think that we need a little bit more socialism and communism in this country, maybe a little less capitalism. That seems like it would work good for me. Jerry Atlanta, Georgia says, do you think the national debt will ever reach zero? It's gone up almost under almost every president. I think it can if we vote for people who take that issue seriously. At the moment, at least since I've been alive, the only party that is governing responsibly economically is the Democratic Party. And it is only because of, giant financial disasters like the 2008 stock market crash and, the Great Recession and COVID and shit like that Democrats have been forced to pass these massive spending bills. And then Republicans get back into office and they cut taxes for the wealthy and they cut regulations and, the stock market plummets and everybody gets poorer except for the wealthiest 1%. And so, then it doesn't happen that way because there's always this like back and forth between Democrats cleaning up the mess that Republicans made and then people voting in Republicans again. If we had a solid chunk of Democratic leadership where we allowed them to actually do the work of being Democrats, then I could imagine us getting down to zero. Lesby Ann says, Reagan's Secretary of Education said we were in danger of an educated proletariat and defunded it. That is 100% accurate. Swiftly Engaged says, have you already talked about Senator Booker? Apologies if you have. You never have to apologize for asking a question that I may have answered earlier in the stream. I'm happy you're here, Swiftly Engaged. I talked about it a little bit. I'm glad that he is. There is very little that Democrats can do in government right now because they have almost no political power. And so, do the things that get attention. And if it doesn't get enough attention, then that's not a problem. That's not bad. You tried something, and I'm not mad at you for trying. The Democrats who held the paddles, the Democrats who wore pink, the Democrats who didn't go to the State of the Union, the one Democrat who objected and got kicked out, Congressman Al Green, Maxwell Frost walked out in the middle to little, fanfare. All of that is fine, in my opinion. If people want to have a day of protest where they're like, don't buy anything from these companies because they're all fucking, Republican-leaning companies, go for it, man. Do it. Do stuff. We don't have to, I think we lose when we argue about what's the most effective thing or yell at people for doing something that you don't think is effective. All those Democrats who wore pink and that was their version of a protest and everybody's yelling at that. Why? That's so stupid. That's so fucking corny. I don't care, man. They're trying something. They're doing something, And that day that the State of the Union was happening, I was on tour and I was hanging out with a bunch of my comic friends and I was saying hey, everybody's talking about what should the protest be? And we were bandying ideas about, and we didn't necessarily agree on one course of action. We all agreed that it was a difficult thing to do, to try to, because you don't want to fall into a good negative messaging trap from the Republican Party and shit like that. I like Cory Booker. I've always liked Cory Booker. I don't think he's perfect. No human is. He's great. What he's doing is great. I hope that it is getting the world's attention because what he's saying is accurate, Let's see here. Glenn Pavlov, 600, says, what do you think the chances are of Democrats winning the two special elections in Florida? That I don't really know. I'm not really a pollster. Special elections have a habit of going well for the party that is not in power. And so, people are really pissed off about what Elon Musk is doing and what Donald Trump are doing. So, we are a little bit more activated of a populace right now, the left-leaning voters. And, it's Florida, and there's a lot of voter suppression in Florida, and, Democrats get eaten by gators, as is the rumor. So, I don't know. They're very red districts, so all of that is, fighting against the headwinds that the tailwinds that we were potentially, that we have working for us. Braden says, Republicans openly lied about the texts on record. Yeah, can you believe that? You believe that Republicans fucking just lied about the fucking Signalgate texts? VBan60 says, the Dems let criminals out and harm people. They are good people, right? I literally have no idea what you're talking about, VBan, and I would encourage you to get your news from other sources, because sometimes when people are too far down into the right-wing propaganda sphere, you will say things that you think are common knowledge, but literally all of us in the regular world have no fucking idea what you're talking about. No tea, no shade. But I would say that what you were saying is blatantly inaccurate. It is not the policy of Democrats to let violent criminals out so that they can continue hurting people. So yeah, let's see here. Squints the Writer says, "'Cause you're biased." I am not biased. I am also not biased. You need to fix your spelling. Lesbian says, "We need laws that force all petitions to be factual and honest." That's an interesting idea. Where anything like that is concerned, you got to think about, could the right weaponize it? And I think that it is. I think that would be an easy thing for them to weaponize. So it would have to be done. It would have to be done well. Let's see here. Okay, Bryce Staker says, "More infrastructure of Medicare. Can we cut some Medicaid to prop up above and tax 41 to 45% of the 1%? Yeah, I don't think we need these cuts. I think that if we just tax the rich what they owe, then, we would be able to get more infrastructure and more Medicare and Medicaid. We would be able to fund Social Security and, potentially free public college and nationalize healthcare, stuff like that. Just get the rich to pay for it, man. They got plenty. VBand60 says, "You are not factual. The Dems weaponize and you are lost." VBand, that's not true, man. And if you don't ask a question, I'm going to boot you. I've been so fucking nice to you. I'm just encouraging you to get your news from better sources. And all you're doing is yelling at me. Nikki Callan says, "What do you use to see current news?" I like to try to use a bunch of different news sources to counter any potential bias that I might be seeing. But as far as breaking news, I like to use news aggregator sites like Ground News or the Reddit news feed. Those are, they are by nature a bunch of different sources. So you are potentially, by virtue of statistics, you are avoiding any kind of singular bias. Nikki Callan says, "Have you heard of SAN?" I have not heard of SAN. Braden says, "I bet she hasn't picked up a book since the 50s. Who are you talking about? VBand60? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know who that person is. Boat789 says, "SS is not funded. We pay into it." That is true, Boat. We do pay into it. Rich people could pay more, let's see here. Bryce Staker says, "I still want America to be pro-business, but no more loopholes and more unions, but lower the corporate tax rate." Is that what you're getting at, Bryce? I don't think we need to lower the corporate tax rate. These people are posting fucking billion-dollar profits. They do better every year, and every year they fuck over their workers. They fuck over their employees. They fuck over the environment. They ruin all of our lives by raising prices because they're fucking monopolies, So yeah, America has been, we're too pro-business, we could stand to be less pro-business. Yeah, baby, says, "Any thoughts on Cory Booker's speech?" Yeah, I just did a huge rant about that. Yeah, baby. The short version is, I am glad when Democrats do whatever they can, and I don't believe in arguing about whether, what is effective and what isn't effective. And if somebody does something that you don't think is effective, I don't believe in throwing shade, because I'm just they're trying something, They don't have any political power right now because America did not give it to them. Let's see here. Brie LaPacker says, "Was Trump officially charged with grape or just accused?" That's a really good question. So it's a little bit murky because there's a lot of, grape allegations. So, it's difficult. Here's what I can say. I know that a woman claimed and filed and sued Trump for graping her when she was 13 years old. That woman then took back her lawsuit, I think because, I believe because her life was threatened. And so she did not want to go through that whole rigmarole. Then there was E. Jean Carroll, who told everybody that Trump graped her. And then Trump sued her for defamation. And she won that case, which basically means, in the eye of the law, he has been found to have graped E. Jean Carroll. But he's not a convicted grapist at the moment. But yeah, there's other cases, I think, but those are the ones that I am most familiar with. Sally Ann says, "How is it murky? It was a civil case, right?" Yeah, it's murky because, as I said, he's not a convicted grapist, but he was found legally to have graped E. Jean Carroll. Let's see here. Desi Girl 55 says, "Why would I ask you about politics? Who are you?" Excellent question. My name is Jared Berenstein. I'm a stand-up comedian, but I also know a lot about politics. I am passionate about it. I am passionate about trying to fix politics, about getting more people involved in politics, about getting more people voting, about fixing the misinformation deluge that we are all suffering under. So yeah, and I know that 90% of the country does not follow politics the way that I do. And so I like to make myself available where people can ask questions and they don't have to worry about getting judged or ridiculed or roasted. I'm not here to debate people. I am just here to answer people's good faith questions. Sometimes I get a little spicy if people get spicy with me in the chat. But on the whole, if you are a person who voted in a way that I did not like or did not vote at all, and you ask me a good faith question, I will give you a good faith answer. I'm not going to judge you based on if you're further to the left than me or further to the right than me. Let's see here. Chris says, sexual assault aside, how can people still follow him? Like, what the hell? Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I don't understand how you can listen to that dude talk and not recognize that he is 100% full of shit. He talks like a stereotype of a shady used car salesman. He talks like a child giving a book report who did not read the book. And for the life of me, I do not understand how just those things, just looking at him talk, does not convince you that he is an idiot who is completely full of shit. Cave Johnson says, is there any way to limit the power of globalists like Elon Musk and George Soros? I don't know if I love the use of the word globalist like that. Like, why not just say billionaires? Why not just say, let's limit the power of money in politics? When you say globalist, you're kind of like flirting with, kind of like tickling this kind of like anti-Semitic trope of a cabal of Jewish bankers who are secretly pulling the strings everywhere. So yeah, if you want to get the money out of politics, you got to vote for Democrats because they're the only ones who are trying to get money out of politics, whereas Republicans are trying to get more money into politics because they are working with billionaires. And so if, they remove the laws on, political finance contributions, then they have more to gain because they have more billionaires in their pockets than the Democrats do. Desi Girl 55 says, are you independent? We left Democratic Party because Biden is still no different than Trump. Desi Girl, that is not true. That is factually inaccurate. Biden was very different than Trump. Biden did a lot of good, and Trump did a lot more bad than Biden did. Whatever issue you had with Biden, I guarantee you Trump is worse on that. And yeah, I'm not an independent. I am a Democrat, and I'm proud to be a Democrat. I know that people think that Democrats are a bad party or bad at messaging or whatever. I believe that is sort of a fallacy of misinformation and propaganda. We have been told that Democrats are worse than they actually are. And we have been told that we need perfect from our politicians instead of just better. Because if you always vote for better, then eventually you'll get to good and great. But I'm happy to discuss that with you if you don't agree with me. Desi Girl 55 says Biden lied about his education ranking and scholarships. I don't know if that's accurate, Desi Girl. I have not heard any of that news. And even if he did lie about that stuff, like, I don't view that as being equal to all of the shitty things that Donald Trump has done as president, So Biden, let's say that what you said is true. Biden lied about his education ranking and scholarships. Donald Trump has lied about literally everything. He has been credibly accused of raping over 24 women, one of whom was 13 years old at the time. He stole children from their parents and then lost the parents in other countries. He is currently shipping off people to a prison concentration camp in El Salvador, and they have not provided us any evidence that those people are immigrants or have done any crimes whatsoever. They have even admitted that one of the people that they shipped off there, they did by mistake, and it was a clerical error. Donald Trump has stolen a lot of money from the American public. He is constantly golfing at his own club, Mar-a-Lago, which means that all the Secret Service agents have to stay at Mar-a-Lago, and when they're there, he charges them 3 times the actual rate. The list of things, Donald Trump fucking led a coup against our country, Like, I don't understand an argument saying that they are the same or that they are equally bad, But I'm here to engage with you. Let's see here. I don't know if you have responded to any things that I just said. Desi Girl. Let's see here. Pater Pete said, yes, did he really win? Did who really win? Joey, is it me, or is supporting the veterans troops is now considered woke? Yeah, I guess so. MC, what party are you most closely aligned with? Democratic Party. Breela Packer says, who are you hoping runs for president in the next election? Breela, I get that question pretty regularly, and I gotta say, I always punt it because I'm not really here to wish cast the 2028 election when we've got special elections happening today in Wisconsin and Florida, and we've got the midterms coming up in 2026. Like, let's talk about the midterms. All right, let's see here. Vu Sache7 says, why do you think Dems lost this election? So here's my grand theory on why the Democrats did so poorly in 2024. Number one, there was a thing called incumbency bias, where everybody all around the world was pissed at whoever was in charge in 2024 because everybody was upset about prices going up over the past couple of years. And so people in every country, regardless of if they were left, right, or center, suffered electoral consequences in 2024. Incumbency bias, we called it. But I think the main factor is misinformation and propaganda. The voters that we needed were all getting their news off of social media. If you're somebody who follows the news like myself, you tend to vote for Democratic candidates. And by a factor of something like 80% of people who read the news and follow politics closely vote for Democrats. So the voters we needed were getting the news off social media. And social media is the Wild West. There's no rules. There's no law. They are controlled by algorithms, by the billionaires who own them. And so the billionaires who own them are going to spread narratives that help their cause. And what is their cause? Electing Republicans who will cut taxes for the top 1% and cut regulations for their businesses so they can make more money regardless of how many of us get hurt in the process. They will flood the social media with narratives that push either Republican politicians or just try to convince people to not vote for Democrats. My friend Dizzy, who I was just talking to about, she says that Biden and Trump were the same. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Like somebody put out a bunch of videos or a bunch of tweets or whatever that were filled with propaganda saying things like the Democrats and Republicans are the same, or voting doesn't do anything, or if you don't vote, it'll be a great protest. You'll communicate to the political parties that you want better, different candidates. Insert your narrative here that will depress Democratic turnout or convince people that not voting is a better move than voting. I think this stuff is insidious. It is it's a fucking pandemic. We don't know a lot of the times that we are being subjected to this propaganda. But it's still going on. It is ongoing. A project of using social media to sow chaos and division, to get us fighting amongst ourselves, to distract us, to convince us of things that are not true. There's a story that came out in 2016 of a Russian bot farm that created 2 Facebook groups that were supposed to be for American citizens living in Texas. So they're in Russia. They create these 2 Facebook groups that are supposedly for people that live in Texas. And then very real people join those groups. And then those very real people got into a very real fight at a protest and counter-protest. So that was what Russia was trying to do. They were trying to get real Americans to fight by creating fake, rivalries and arguments online. And so my argument is, do you think they stopped? Do you think they're no longer doing that? When you see somebody on the internet who you think represents a leftist or a righty, do you think that Russia has stopped putting fake lefties and fake conservatives on the internet in order to sow division, chaos, and misinformation? I do not think that. I think it is obvious that a lot of the, distractions that we are suffering from when people make videos about liberals being cucks and, MAGA women not being able to do their makeup correctly. What we're not doing is getting pissed off at the fucking billionaire class and the Republican Party politicians that are working with them to fucking tighten the screws on our necks even tighter and force us to go with less while they are fucking eating caviar and lobster 3 meals a day on their fucking golden yachts 24/7. How many times have we heard, you guys just got to work a little bit harder. You just guys got to work a little bit harder. You guys just need to be paid a little bit less. You just got to pay a little bit more for this medical care until we can just get over this hump. Meanwhile, these guys are fucking having money fights and swimming through gold like fucking Scrooge McDuck, Sorry, that is one of my rants that I go on. 86 What says, do you believe the Electoral College benefits more than 50% of American citizens? I do not. I do not believe the Electoral College benefits more than 50% of Americans. I believe that it hurts everybody. Sphinx Egyptian says they are still in the comments on these sites. Oh, yeah. Desi Girl says, I watched his condescension towards the working class in the 1970s. Lied about his education on TV. Look, Desi Girl, I am starting to suspect that you are not a real person. Like, why do you care about the way that Joe Biden was comporting himself in the 1970s when I can give you very real examples of awful, unconscionable, morally bankrupt, criminally corrupt things that Donald Trump has done in the recent past and currently doing right now. I can also give you a litany of examples of amazing things that Joe Biden and the Democrats did for the American public in the very recent history. Let's see here. Braden says, have a good day, though. Where are you? Who are you talking to, Braden? To me? I'm having a really great time. Let's see here. Yeah, Dizzy. Again, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what your fucking vibe is. I gotta tell you, it seems sus. It seems sus that we are watching the Trump administration fucking deport students for saying things that they do not like, which is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. And yet you are talking about the way that Joe Biden was talking to people in the 1970s. Let's see here. Joey says, what's the cutoff age to be president? There is no cutoff age. Shane Jackie 6 says, why don't you quit talking and tell us then? Tell you what, Shane Jackson. Let's see here. Dr. Bob Fanboy says, are you pro-capitalism? Can you briefly explain why or why not? I am not pro or against capitalism or communism or socialism. There is no country that has been only one of those things. Every society is a combination. I think that we have a little bit too much of a specific kind of crony capitalism here where the wealthy have an unfair advantage in everything. And I think that we need a little bit more socialism and communism. I think that we need to be encouraging companies to be employee owned. And I think that we need to be nationalizing things that are better for America to be nationalized, like health insurance, for example. Tanasha Wells says, did Musk quit Doge? I have not heard that. Maybe he has already. I have not heard that. Vu Sache says, you think Dems would do better if we focused more on issues that all Americans are facing? I don't, Vu Sache, because here's the thing, and this is my other rant that I go on for an hour, so forgive me, I'll try to keep it short. There is nothing that the Democratic Party can do that the social media world and right-wing media will not tell you is the wrong thing to do. If they focus on kitchen table issues, they'll say that it's a problem, that they're not talking about immigration. If they talk about immigration, they'll tell you that it's a problem, that they're not talking about cost of living. If they're talking about cost of living, they'll tell you, why aren't you talking about foreign affairs? There are a million examples of this where Democrats never get any credit and Republicans never get any blame. I call the Democratic Party Schrodinger's political party because at any given moment they are simultaneously too far to the left, too far to the right, doing too much, doing too little, talking about kitchen table issues, talking about the authoritarian threat of Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it's a messaging problem. I think it is a message box problem, where we're getting our information and the way that that information is skewed. I just watched, there was a story that came out, I think it was yesterday, about how Republicans in the Senate just reversed a law that Democrats had put into place limiting bank overdraft fees at $5. Before Democrats passed that bill, banks could charge you whatever the fuck they wanted. If you are 1 cent overdrawn, they could legally charge you $100, and that is completely fine. Democrats put a bill in place capping that as $5, and Republicans just reversed it. So now banks can charge you, again, whatever the fuck they want if you overdraft on your checking account. But where I saw that headline, it didn't say Republicans did that. It said the Senate did that, which is a step removed from telling you the truth of that it was the Republicans that did it. You have to know how the government works in order to understand that Republicans did that. You have to know that Republicans currently have a majority in the House, and what they do, gets passed as opposed to anything that Democrats in the Senate try to do. But for some reason, the headline didn't say Republicans, it said the Senate. This shit is insidious. It's everywhere. It's like, it's part of our DNA at this point where, if you're going to write anything negative about Republicans, it has to get softened a little bit. And, regardless of what Democrats do, we just yell at them for some shit. All right. I said I was going to go short on that, and I did not. Grace123 says, talk about voting Democrats. What would you like me to say about that? Flowsure says, why are people mad at Elon Musk? For a lot of reasons, Flowsure, but I say the number one reason is that he is an unelected billionaire who is attempting to dismantle our government because it would help him and his other wealthy friends in order for the government to be dissolved. He is currently illegally taking over government agencies and firing a bunch of those people and, cutting off their funding just so that he can close down agencies that are investigating him and also agencies that help the 99% protect themselves from the top 1%. Because he is one of the richest people in the world, it serves him better to not have government agencies that protect him, that protect us from him. And that is what he's currently doing right now. So people are worried about, not being able to get their Social Security checks. They're worried about the fact that he is firing people who are in charge of making sure that deadly diseases don't come into America. The agencies that he is cutting are emboldening and giving more power to terrorist organizations and cartels. And so that's why. He's also mass firing veterans right now because all these jobs that he is cutting from the government, again, illegally, has no authority to do this. All those jobs are mostly staffed by veterans because when people are hiring for government jobs, they give preference to veterans. So yeah, he's mass firing veterans while simultaneously cutting health and psychiatric benefits for veterans. So these people who no longer have a steady paycheck and are worried about the future and potentially suffering from PTSD, now they also can't go to a psychiatrist and help them out with their new mental anguish. GTRP Piler says, is it legal to give away $1 million to people who vote in Wisconsin? It is not legal. It is not legal. I'm going to say that as many times as I possibly can. When in the 2020 election, I wanted to do a voter registration drive. I wanted to give people stickers in exchange for registering to vote. And I was told by the nonprofit that I was working with that I can't do that because that is illegal and it could be viewed as electioneering. Elon Musk is getting away with it because he is currently working with the Trump administration, who is in control of the Department of Justice. And just as a side note, the White House is not supposed to have their hands in the Department of Justice. The person that is appointed is nominated by the president, but after they're nominated, they're supposed to be completely separate. It is completely unethical for them to be in communication. Pam Bondi, though, who is the Attorney General now, is working hand in hand with Trump to go after Trump's enemies and, et cetera, and to ignore the illegal things that Trump's friends are doing. For example, Elon Musk paying people $100 to vote for Republicans and having $1 million giveaway to people who are registering to vote or whatever he said he's going to do. But all the news reports have come out about how all of those contests were actually predetermined and he just wanted to give money to specific Republican operatives. Hey Yo says, wait, I thought that check was before the election. No, he's also doing it now in Wisconsin. There is a very important state Supreme Court race happening in Wisconsin right now that Elon Musk is trying to buy. And so if you live in Wisconsin or you know anybody who lives in Wisconsin, that election is happening right now. And so you should get out there and vote for the not Elon Musk. There's a guy and a girl who are up for that seat. I forget their names. But the woman is the one that you want to vote for because the guy is fully in Elon Musk's pocket. Let's see here. Johnny Gallo says the whole administration is unethical. Completely agree with that. Jill W says, well, we know that's not going to happen. What's not going to happen, Jill W? H-Dog says, I voted, getting my friends to vote. Susan Crawford. Thank you, H-Dog. Thank you for your work. Rena, thank you also. Sudan Crawford is a very funny way that a right-wing person might try to, futz with her name in order to make it. You remember how in the 2008 election, people were calling Barack Obama, Osama Obama or whatever? It'd be funny if they were doing that to Susan also, calling her Sudan Crawford. Noah says, what do you think? Do you think MAGA America is moving towards fascism with demonizing of trans and immigrants? I don't No, I don't know that they are moving. I think they're there. I think they've been there for a long time. Demonizing others is part of the fascist authoritarian playbook where Hitler had, Jews and blacks and gays. The Trump administration has immigrants and trans kids and also black people and Jewish people and gay people, etc. So yeah, they're there. They've been there for a long time. I was being generous. I don't think they deserve it, Noah. As I've said 1,000 times, the Republicans never get any blame. Democrats never get any credit. So I am not going to give them a fucking inch. They've already gotten so much, Mr. K. Scotty says Trump is doing a great job doing exactly what needs to happen to straighten our broken economy out. I disagree with that, Mr. K. Scotty. First of all, that is not a question. Second of all, prices are going up, inflation is going up. We are looking down the barrel of a artificial recession that is being caused by Donald Trump. He is pissing in the faces of all of our allies. He is ruining our reputation on the world stage. Every nation is mad at us now, except for Russia, weirdly. Like, isn't that weird? Like, why is he doing more to help the citizens of Russia than the citizens of America? You know what I mean? Melissa Potts says, this bro is Delulu. No, all the things I'm saying is accurate. You can Google it. Let's see here. Alberto is Coolio says, who cares? I care, and a lot of people care. Melissa, so you are not asking a question, so you're out of here. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Hey, yo, says stocks are speculation. Tariffs haven't happened yet. I mean, they have happened and they haven't happened because he declares them and then he reverses them. The tariffs are just another corruption mechanism for Trump because when he puts tariffs on all these things that are coming into the country, all these companies will then go to Trump and say, will you write an exception for my company? I'll give you $2 million if you do. And Trump goes, okay. He did that in his first term also. He's doing that currently. That's the reason why he wants to put a tariff on every other country is so that every company will come to him and say, hey, if I give you $5 million, will you exempt my company? And then he'll go, sure, thank you very much for that $5 million. I appreciate that. Alberto is Coolio says they need us more than we need them. Everything will be okay. I don't think it will be okay, Alberto Coolio. I don't think it will be okay for the legal citizens of America who are currently being deported just because of things that they have said, which is a blatant violation of our First Amendment rights. I don't think it's okay for a legal green card holder to be deported to an El Salvadorian supermax prison. It's not going to be okay for them. It's not going to be okay for these farmers who cannot get financing for their farms right now because nobody knows how much things are going to cost, how much seed is going to cost, how much fertilizer is going to cost. There are a lot of people who are hurting right now, man. And the fact that you don't feel it, is lucky you, Alberto. But the fact of the matter is, things are getting really, really bad for a lot of people. And I would encourage you to get your news from somewhere other than where you're getting it from to show you that, so that you can have empathy for your fellow American citizens. Justin Campbell says, when did Democrats stop being racist? The parties switched sort of their ideas towards races and civil rights during the Lyndon Johnson administration. That is when Nixon engineered the quote-unquote Southern strategy of having the Republican Party be the party of racists, and then they started winning elections based on that. Vusache7 says, how does America come back from this? This is another big speech that I often give on my live stream, so buckle up, everybody. The way that we get out of this is we have to do it. Us, you and me, the citizens of this country. We have to exercise the power that we have as citizens, because right now there is no group or person that can save us. Private industry isn't going to save us. They're worried about the bottom line. The judiciary is not going to save us. They're a bunch of fucking MAGA lunatics also. The Republican Party is not going to save us. They are currently in control of Congress, so Congress is not going to save us. And the Democratic Party have zero political power right now, so they can't save us. And even if they could, they don't have the financial resources to save us. They don't have access to the kinds of funds that the Republican Party has, because the Republican Party is working in league with the billionaire class. They have control of all the media and social media spheres, so they control the narratives that get shoved out to everybody in this country, especially those who do not follow the news regularly. So they're just getting fucking drenched in tons of propaganda and misinformation to convince them to either vote for Republicans or not vote for Democrats. You know, my friend over here, what's his name, Alberto Coolio, doesn't believe that things are bad for people in America right now because of the Trump administration. That dude He's being fed information from the billionaire class to convince him that things are going great in this country right now. Or he is a paid bot, spreading that misinformation itself. So yeah, because the Democrats can't do it and because nobody else is going to do it, we have to do it. We have to protest, we have to boycott, we have to strike, we have to organize, we have to convince people to vote for Democrats. We have to go out there and find the 85 million people who did not vote in the last election who could have, and get them to vote and register them to vote. Whoa, hold on a second. You're Alive is not eligible for recommendation or restricted research because it contains unoriginal or unreproduced content. All right, I'm going to have to appeal that because that is not accurate. But, my live is doing mid today anyways, as far as numbers go. My live does not contain the content mentioned above. But yeah, people on the right like to do this to me. Well, they'll report my channel for things I did not do in order to try to silence me. All right, so here's what we do, guys. We got to exercise our power as citizens. We have to put pressure on our elected representatives. The people that are currently in office, we have to flood their phone lines and fax them every day. We got to work with organizations that are already doing this great work. Indivisible is a great organization to join. Run for Something is a great organization to join and work with. Vote Save America is a great organization to join and to work with. And if we all do that work together, then we win. Then we fix this shit. Then we have a country that is for us instead of just the fucking billionaire class who are all sitting on their fucking yachts, hiding their money in fucking the Cayman Islands and shit like that, while we're all struggling on fucking crumbs. While we're all living off of the cruft that falls out of their mouth as they're fucking eating disgustingly huge meals like that dude in fucking Lord of the Rings, fucking tomato coming out of his face and everything while Pippin or Merry was singing in the hall and shit like that. So yeah, we have to do it. And here's the good news. If we all do all this work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. We only have to do just a little bit. If everybody does it, the more people that do this work, the less work that we have to do individually. But again, that is the only way that we get out of this, guys. We have to do the work. Alberto Isculio, and I was speaking to the other countries in the world, said, oh, my appeal was approved, but then I just got a thing again. All right. Okay, gonna have to appeal that one too now. Appeal that one. Fantastic. Yeah, again, everybody just want to give you more evidence that people on the right are trying to silence me by flagging my channel for these bullshit reasons, Alberto Isculio says Elon isn't. He's working in the government right now for free. Alberto, so here's the thing. Number one, you're not asking questions, so you're in danger of getting booted from my live. Are you listening to anything that I am saying, Alberto? Because stop hating on people, peeps, and let the man work. Thank you, Alberto Coolio. You could also just be the person who's doing this, So yeah, what was I saying, Alberto? Yeah, Elon Musk is not saving us any money. He is cutting organizations that help us so that he can put more money in his pocket. Let's see here. Yeah, tell me, let me know what I need to clarify for you, man, because again, let's see here. The things that you are saying are inaccurate. Tyler Gargas says, why did Democrats lose? Misinformation, propaganda, and incumbency bias. Everybody who was in power in 2024 suffered electoral consequences because people were just mad at whoever was in charge. Suzanne M says, isn't Elon being given $8 million a day, or is that coming from his contracts? That I'm not 100% sure about. I know he is getting money from the government. Doge is being funded, even though that is illegal. They have not been created by Congress. They have not been funded by Congress. And Elon Musk is granting himself a lot of government contracts, which is grossly unethical, in addition to being illegal. KTA says, has there been one trial for fraud that Elon has found? There has not, because he's lying about all the fraud that he has found. Lauren says, have you been watching Cory Booker's filibuster-esque protest? I watched a little bit of it. I'm very happy with what he's doing. I like Cory Booker. I always have. I like any Democrat doing anything. Go, do the work. I'm not going to sit here and argue about whether it's effective or not. I'm not going to sit here and debate what we should do. I just think people should be doing things, and he's doing it. So great for him, man. Let's see here. They just show us it's because we are so compliant. Lesby Ann says, are both parties responsible for making Elon a billionaire? I mean, if you're looking at, government contracts that Elon got during both Democrat and Republican administrations, then yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Elon Musk was making really cool electric cars, and there was a wing of the Democratic Party that believed that electric cars would be better for the earth than gas guzzling cars, and so they viewed that as a net positive arrangement. Elon Musk did not go completely insane until much more recently. So, but yeah, he got rich off of government contracts. Direct Democracy says his cars are absolutely terrible. Yeah, I mean, that's accurate. Teslas have the highest fatality crash rating of any car on the market right now, twice the average. And people that make cars, I have this is anecdotal, so take it with a grain of salt, but a friend of a friend of a friend of mine, his dream was to work for Tesla. He had one meeting with Elon Musk, and he was like, that guy's a fucking idiot. He has no idea how to make cars. Alberto Isculio says, question, why would you be opposed to someone like Elon Musk revamping/updating our government? I am not against somebody updating, revamping our government, but that is not what Elon Musk is doing. Elon Musk is shutting down government organizations that are investigating him. He is shutting down government agencies that protect the 99% from the billionaire class. And he is doing that because he is part of the billionaire class, and he wants to do whatever the fuck he wants and push people around and sexually harass people and fire people illegally and be racist and have there be no consequences to that. And he's lying about it. All the fraud, waste, and abuse that he's finding, it is being debunked regularly. So yeah, and aside from the fact that what he's doing is wrong and bad and is hurting people, it's also illegal. Like, he does not have any actual government authority. Doge is not a real organization that has been approved by Congress. In, the grand experiment of, representational democracy, there's supposed to be a thing called checks and balances so that we don't have a dictator just doing whatever the fuck he wants. But Elon Musk and Donald Trump are operating as though they are dictators and seeing if anybody stops them. So that's what my problem is with them, Alberto Coolio. Let's see here. Knickknack says, I love what Elon is doing. We need more. Knickknack, that I don't think you know what Elon is doing. Gary Loom says, how can you just spew lies? Where's your proof Doge has been debunked? I mean, you have the same Google as I have, man. So, you can look it up. Harry Mellon says, absolutely, you need nothing more. It's self-interest. He is zero a public servant. You need nothing more. It's self-interest. I think you're agreeing with me, Harry Mellon. Let's see here. Owen Leave says, Biden didn't make a single decision in office. They're all the same. That is not true, Owen Leave. And for anybody wondering, where does all this propaganda come from that is trying to convince people not to vote? We got this Owen Leave fella here who's trying to make it seem like both parties are the same and voting doesn't do anything and all politicians are corrupt and terrible, So there he is. There he is right there, guys. Alberto Isculio says, a lot of what you're saying is untrue or hyperbole, but it's cool. I know I can't make statements. No, the things I'm saying are not hyperbole or untrue, Alberto Isculio. If you got your news from a different source, I think that you would see that it is accurate. But yeah, I don't know why you think what I'm saying is untrue, Alberto Coolio, because it is one of the most obvious, pieces of corruption and grifting that is existed in modern times. It is a theft the likes of which we have never seen. Elon Musk has backed up a semi-trailer to the American government and is shoving our tax dollars into it and driving away scot-free. Let's do. Knickknack says, Trump broke this weak host. No, he didn't. He's invigorated me. I am enjoying doing these lives, so I'm having a fucking great time, man. Computing says, you're speaking it facts 1000%. Completely agree with that. Gary Loom says, what's obvious is you're a left-wing antagonist. That is not the case, Gary Loom. I am just here reporting on the news. Preppy Sports Guy says, taxes are theft. That is not accurate. Also, that is not a question, so you are out of here. Let's see here. Owen Leave says, he getting paid for this, y'all. I mean, I get paid when people give me money, like donations and stuff like that. I get very, very little, though. I make something like $40 a month doing these, and, I do them because I like doing them. And if people want to support me by sending me money, they can, but you don't have to. And I will reiterate that I would much rather you put food on the table than send me a couple of nickels and dollars. But Owen, I do not care for people spreading misinformation on my channel and not asking questions, so you're out of here. Knickknack says, Democrats lost the working class, Bernie Sanders. Yeah, Bernie said that, but I don't really agree with what Bernie Sanders said there. I like Bernie Sanders. I canvassed for him in 2016, and I supported him after Warren dropped out in 2020. But yeah, I don't think that he was right about that. I think the Democrats have done a lot for the working class. It's just the messaging environment has made it seem like the Democrats have dipped on the working class. Raquel says, can you explain supply and demand graph, government spending, then stagflation? That's a really big that's a really big question, Raquel. I don't know if I can as eloquently as I would like to in this moment. Golden Money 13 says, now that FEMA is being dismantled, who will they blame now? They're going to blame individual states. If it is a Democratic governor, they're going to say that that Democratic governor is responsible. If it's a Republican governor, but they have Democrats in the state House and state Senate, they're going to blame those Democrats. If if it's fully Republican, then they're going to say it was immigrants that did it and trans kids, Let's see here. Lesby Ann says, I think Citizens United made the Democrats weaker. I mean, it did because it opened the floodgates for billionaire spending, and billionaires support the Republican Party more than they support the Democrat Party by a factor of 75 to 25. So yeah, of course it made the Democratic Party weaker, Let's see here. Computing says, please talk about massive layoffs underway at U.S. health agencies today. Right now, the Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Doge are mass firing people at various health agencies. These are the places that track infectious diseases and come up with cures for various diseases and new therapies for cancers and HIVs and shit like that. And they're just firing all those people, because we don't get to have, preventative medicine in this country, because Elon only has $200 billion and he wants $300 billion. So we have to go without preventative measures to make sure that we all don't get fucking Ebola so that Elon Musk can be richer. He is firing these people who are mostly veterans, again, so he's mass firing veterans, making us all more susceptible to deadly diseases, ripping medical research out of scientists' hands. There are people who were on the verge of breakthrough for things like Parkinson's, and all of their research got thrown in the garbage. And these scientists just came out and they said, that is 30 years of research that is gone. That is not the sort of thing that we can just, restart once, a Democrat gets back in office. Like, we just have to start from scratch now. So there are medical breakthroughs that are now decades away, thanks to Donald Trump and Elon Musk cutting funding and firing people from these agencies. Let's see here. Sharf David said, who was president instead of Joe Biden? Joe Biden was the president. I don't know what you're talking about. Jerry Atlanta, Georgia says, why didn't Michael J. Fox do something about the Parkinson issue? He's doing a lot, he's doing as much as he can, but, a single actor who has not worked in a long time because of his debilitating degenerative disease is not the only person who should be responsible for funding Parkinson's research. Also, I said Parkinson's, but I'm not 100% sure it was Parkinson's. It was diseases like Parkinson's and syndromes like Parkinson's. Let's see here. Matt says, yes or no to voter ID laws. So I'm a general no for voter ID laws for the main reason that it does nothing to actually stop voter fraud. It is just a voter suppression technique. It is trying to keep people from marginalized communities from voting because those people tend to vote for Democrats as opposed to Republicans. We have a ton of data on this. There is zero evidence of substantive voter fraud. Most of the voter fraud that happens is actually people on the right trying to vote double or vote in two different states. But it's never enough to actually sway any elections. Republicans have also admitted in meetings with their fellow Republicans that these are voter suppression laws and that they view them as ways to win elections as opposed to ways to stop voter fraud. But if you are insistent on it, make getting IDs easy and free, and I will be on board with this. But the evidence that I have that these people don't really give a shit about voter security is that they are not willing to make it easy and free to get an ID for people to vote. Steve D says, so by that logic, Pew pew laws are a bad idea. No, that's not right, because I can't take my ballot and go into an office building and kill 50 people. Steve D. I do not see how you think that those things are similar, especially considering the fact that there is zero evidence of substantive voter fraud, but there is a ton of evidence of gun violence and gun deaths. Especially here, because this is where it all fucking happens, my man. Let's see here. Sphinx Egyptian says, LOL, it's like the 350-year-old getting Social Security that MAGA believes. Yeah, Alberto Coolio, there you go. There's one example of a lie that Elon Musk told about all of the fraud and abuse that he was finding. Raquel says, classical Keynesian or neoclassical model for econ. I guess I'd go Keynesian. Steve D says, so elections don't have consequences? No, they do, Steve D. And again, I don't know what you are trying to argue here. You're all over the fucking map. You are picking points from the right-wing talking points board that don't fit with the thing that I just said. There you go, buddy. Stephen Jeffrey says, breaking news, a politician lied. Stephen Jeffrey, when you paint all politicians with the same brush, you make it seem like they are all the same. But they are not all the same. Some are better and some are worse. Some are good and some are bad. So don't say breaking news, a politician lied, because all you're doing is making people disengage with politics in general and making people cynical about politics. It's not helpful, my man. And the fact that you are giggling about this, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and block you. If you're not here to talk, if you're not here to ask a question, you're out of here. Let's see here. Costs money to get an ID if no driver's license. Stephanie B says, any word out of Florida elections or Wisconsin? I have not. I don't torture myself by, watching the read receipts for elections anymore, because that just gives me a heart attack. All right. We're at about an hour and things have really calmed down comments-wise. Random, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. Thank you for all your comments and questions and gifts and shares and likes, everybody. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the support that you give me. Let's see here. Brila Packer says, why do you need more paperwork to vote than to get a gun? That is an excellent question, Brila. And the answer is because voter suppression helps Republicans win elections, and undoing gun laws helps Republicans win elections. All right, where was I? If you have any questions that I was not able to get to in this live stream, you can email me through my website, jaredbernstein.com. You can send me a DM. My DMs are open. And if you are ever curious about when I am streaming, you can go to my website. My calendar is there, jaredbernstein.com. That is also where you can see my stand-up tour dates. I am a traveling, touring stand-up comedian. I work regular. And let's see here. I appreciate all the support you give me if it's the free kind. If you want to support me financially, you can as well, but I will never insist, because we're suffering through a cost of living crisis. I would much rather you put food on the table. But if you want to, you can. I have a Patreon that you can join, that you can find on my website, jaredbernstein.com. I have a store, jaredbernstein.com/store, that you can buy things from. And you can also send gifts on all of the various platforms that I am streaming from. Kaz Teo says, do you do any podcast surfing? I don't know what podcast surfing is. Is that where you just are a guest on a bunch of different podcasts? Steve D says, do you need a background check to vote? No, you don't. You don't need to do a background check to vote, Steve D. I don't know what point you were trying to make. Let's see here. Alice says, Trump did say give him just one day. Yeah, he did say that, didn't he? I don't know why we're not holding him accountable to the things that he's saying, All right, and lastly, the last thing I always say is just my heartfelt plea for everybody to do the work and to not be cynical and to not be despondent. The fucking billionaires that are in charge right now, they want you to give up. They want you to think it's game over. They want you to be cynical about politics. They want you to say both parties are the same. They want you to think all politicians are corrupt. They want you to give up. So don't give up. Send a giant fuck you to those weird-ass fucking dorks by not giving up, by having hope and doing the fucking work. Talk to people. Talk to people in real life. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers. Make sure that you are correcting any narratives or misinformation or propaganda that they've got swimming around in their noodle. And this stuff is insidious. There are smart people who follow politics who sometimes fall for this stuff. A very good, smart friend of mine told me once that he was pissed off that the Democrats didn't codify Roe when they had the chance. And folks, they never had the chance. So there's just an example of that right there for you. So yeah, we got to be talking to people in real life. If it's someone that you know, it's got a lot more juice than if I just canvass the neighborhood and talk to a bunch of people who don't know who the fuck I am. But we need people. We need everybody to be doing this stuff. We need people to be organizing and protesting and boycotting and striking and canvassing and recruiting. I need more people doing this work so that I don't have to do it all, guys. So let's all do the work. Because if we all do the work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. And that is the only way that we get out of this. We all take care of each other. We all do the work. No one lets go of anyone's hand. All right, let's see here. Harry Mellon says, do everything on day one. Yeah, he did say he was going to do that. Steve D says, how about you open your mind? Open my mind to what? Steve D, you're not asking any questions. So guess what? You have reached the threshold. Alrighty, let's see here. All right, let's see if there's any last questions to get to. Sphinx Egyptian, I'm trying to concentrate on the farmers' narrative and show Democrats are good to farmers. That's pretty smart. I like that. You know, the Republican Party has been really shitty to farmers for a long time. Kaz Teo says, do you do any podcasts or anything? I have podcasts that I've done in the past. I kind of view this show as my like live action podcast. If you want to listen to old episodes, they are all collected on YouTube, and you can get that link through my website. I also have an old podcast called Is This Anything, where me and a bunch of buddies of mine, we would work on new jokes together. I loved that podcast, but unfortunately everybody got into a fight with each other and now that podcast no longer exists. And I'm the only person who is not at fault for that podcast exploding. Anyways, but yeah, I don't do anything. I don't have any podcasts going right now. But thank you for your interest. I really appreciate that. All right. Any last questions? Kurt Anderson says, Dems good to farmers. They say their tractors and cows are killing the ozone, LOL. Well, you know, they are, Kurt Anderson. Tractors and cows are killing the ozone. Dems are not bad to farmers because of that. Dems are good to farmers for other reasons. Them saying an accurate thing about climate change does not mean that they are bad to farmers. Harry Mellon says, how is Vance going to explain his hypocrisy to his kids? I don't know. Maybe through the door because they won't let him in. Sting Link Mass says, where are you going if TikTok goes? I already multicast onto Twitch and YouTube in addition to TikTok. So I'm hoping that if, you know, anything ever happens to TikTok, that y'all will follow me onto there, because I get way fewer comments on those platforms. So I need these comments to be able to do the show. Alice says, who has Musk fired that was taking him to court about SpaceX? That I do not know the details on that story. Aiden says, who are your favorite candidates for 2028? Aiden, I always punt this question. Thank you for asking, but I am not here to wishcast the 2028 election when we've got special elections happening today in Wisconsin and Florida, and we got the midterms coming up in 2026. Those are the ones that I am laser focused on. Let's see here. X Nails by Nina says, why are we spending $40 million on 400 migrants at Guantanamo? I have no fucking idea. It makes no sense. X Nails by Nina, that the Trump administration has decided that we're going to use Guantanamo as a place to put migrants. It makes no fucking sense. It is a humanitarian nightmare. It is a logistical nightmare. It is expensive. There's your government waste right there. It would be cheaper to build a Guantanamo Bay here in America. My only thinking is that they want the cover of being able to do humanitarianly terrible shit to these people. They want to torture them. You know, they want to use them for fucking prison labor and shit like that. But yeah, and you know, because it's Guantanamo, there's no rules at Guantanamo, thankfully. And that's part of the reason why they're shipping people off to a fucking concentration camp in El Salvador, you know? The Ilmoth, good to see you again, says, do you consider the Iraq and Afghan war to be imperialism? You know, I'm sure I could opine about that, but I don't have like a unified theory about it right now. Yeah, I'm gonna have to punt that one. You know, it's a little outside of my comfort zone. All right, let's see here. All right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. Catch me here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Have an excellent Tuesday, everybody. Do the work, be there for each other, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.